Okay, Scott, thank you so much for joining me
My pleasure.
on The Crop. You are the creative director at UKTV.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there and how long you've been there as well?
I've been there quite a long time. It's coming up for 11 and a half years. My responsibility is for all the promotional materials across all the channels and the streaming service, plus overseeing the branding.
The campaigns that you do, I've had a look obviously at loads of your work, they're fantastic, but I know that one thing that you really spearheaded was the rebrand of you, right? And that's obviously a huge undertaking. So can you tell us about that process?
When people say, where do you work? You go, UKTV, and they go, and you go, start listing out the channels. And then as soon as you say Dave, as soon as you say Gold, people start going, oh, I know all these channels, so you work across all these. So on one hand, we'd done a brilliant job of building up the identities of the channels, but no one realised they were all part of one network. So it was just a kind of, how can we make it simpler and more cohesive and make, M boards that aren't 10 seconds long of trying to explain stuff. We worked with Wolf Olins, who had done all of the BBC, all the blocks, and sort of sat down with them and went through the challenge, and that's how we got to you. That's what we've been working on for the last year and a half, trying to grow the awareness, but still maintain those linear channels, but grow our streaming service.
And the big campaign, I guess, that was to promote all of this was quite an amazing collaboration. I'll let you talk about it.
We kind of, we looked at the budget, we looked at the time of year. I think we were between the Euros and the Olympics. We picked a date, and we were like, we need something massive to land, just to create big spike of interest. And we sat down with the brief, and very quickly we got to the territory of We've Got You, of kind of saying that the service is for everybody, and we've got something for everybody. The way I always look at it is, you look at Apple TV, but no one was watching Apple TV till they got Ted Lasso. Ultimately, the content is the thing that will get people there.
Yeah.
We went into it going, we want to do something exciting and different, but we can't take the content fully out of it. We had one idea, and the song was in there, I've Got You, Babe. And we kept kind of going back to the song, and then there was an idea where a guy's on a bus. They're always on a bus. We're always on a bus when you're watching streaming or on a train.
That's true.
Watching an iPad and you hear the song, but it turns around and it was a female sheep, singing "I've Got You, Babe" in a Cher wig. And I was like, oh, it's good.
It's layers, it's like an onion,
It's crazy. We had a producer come in to work on it, a lady called Leanne Farley, who was great, and we were just talking, and I went, what about, who can we get to sing the song, or what do we do with the song? And I said, why don't we get Cher? And she went, okay. And I kind of took it to the CMO, and she's like, okay, great, it'd be amazing, but why? And then we were working with a guy called Owen McLaughlin. He used to work ex Channel 4. He was helping out and consulting and stuff like that, and he'd written some ideas that we really liked. We were developing one of them. The one I went to was like, what would be amazing if we had Cher in the Queen Vic singing the song with Barry from EastEnders? Taking those two things and riffing on a kind of moment, but bringing two, because it's a very, outside of the UK, no one knows who Barry. Shaun Williamson, people know. Lovely Shaun.
Arguably his own cult following, really.
So you put those two together, and we obviously have EastEnders, we have classic EastEnders. And I said, that feels like the finish. I don't know what the beginning is. I've started at the end and worked back. And he went, okay. And then he just came back with a script. So that's how it started to evolve. And we started to write it, and then we started to look for the shots and stuff like that. So there we had it. It was like, yeah, simple, right? Let's get Cher. Like that was the easy bit. And I did have to go to the CEO and sort of go, we've had this, because I'd already gone and sold one idea, and he's going, great. And I went, we've had this other idea. And he just laughed and went, yeah, okay, do it. And I was like, really? I said, that's the most
outrageous thing that I've ever asked for.
Yeah, the most relaxed response, the most outrageous request I've ever made. But then you just get people going, you're crazy. Shall we do this?
Well, actually, that was my next question, is what was the process like of trying to approach Cher or Cher's team and be like, hey, do you want to sing with Barry from EastEnders?
I've never worked with anyone like Cher, right? But working with TV shows and getting lots of different talent in over time, people just go, they won't do that. What if they say no? And you'll go, well, I want them to say no. We can all say no. We can say no all day, right? People always go, how do you ask Cher to put in your head? Well, first of all, you ask her. So we wrote the idea up. We managed to track down. She's got 2 agents, and we sent it to her, and we chased. We waited, and then they come back and goes, "Oh, she likes the script. She thinks it's funny." The problem was, this is a big swing,
Yeah.
and you're working up to this, and as excited as you are, and you kind of people think creatives just go, "Oh, let's do this crazy thing, eh? It's going to be great." You're also going, but if it doesn't work, or there's a million things that could go wrong between I need this person to be here on this date and all these things, and we still had all the logistics and all of the posts and all of those things to work out, and diaries and time and stuff like that. The biggest problem, and this where you end up so befuddled, is you're working with LA time.
Yeah.
So you can only you're sending the request out at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And in that time I said, you're either going to bed on a problem or waking up to a new one. And you're also very aware that the more it costs, the more the jeopardy goes up. And so it was just a blurry few months. And I still had, many people going, this isn't going to happen, right? This isn't going to happen. What are you going to do when this doesn't happen? And I'm like, well, I've got to kind of keep
I've got to try. Yeah.
I've got to persevere. We've got to try it, as a team. And we got Shaun in, and he was like, "Is it AI Cher?" And I was like, "No, it's real Cher." And he just started sweating. I went, "Look, she's a massive Barry Evans fan. She said she wouldn't do it unless you were in it, right?" So it was just months and months of back and forth discussion. And then we ended up shooting it in West London next to a Screwfix, right? So it's that thing of just constantly asking the question, be prepared to take no for an answer. Don't be kind of precious. Just go, what do I really need? What can I live with?
Yeah.
What can I live without? That's why I always break it up, because there was a couple of times where it looked like it wasn't going to happen. For whatever reason, scheduling, costs, stuff like that. So I'm really happy it came off. And the other thing is, you get to the end of it and you just go, I've worked at this, I've looked at this a million times. I don't know what this is anymore. Is this going to work? Are people going to get it? Because we wanted something to be fun. We didn't want it to be too wacky. We talked a lot about the different scenarios she was in. Were they too silly? And I think overall, people just really clicked with it. They liked it, they were surprised, and then they were in. And then I think when it works is when you surprise people, but then you continue to surprise them.
Yeah. So this was a big risk that you took. It was a huge team undertaking. What were the results, really? Like, what was the reaction overall?
Registrations went up, interest straight away went up. People, just the awareness, went up. It kind of worked because it just gave us that really big burst of what you want at launch, just a massive spike. So it definitely worked, and we wanted something that people talked about, and that's really hard nowadays. It definitely hit the brief of what he wanted, was something that was big and exciting, but then you have to goes back to my point about Apple TV and Ted Lasso, right? You need the content to underpin that,
and to keep people coming back.
Yes, and then while they're there, you feed them other stuff, or they organically see other stuff, and also we talk a lot about new stuff, quite rightly, but I don't know about your viewing habits, but a lot of people watch a lot of old favourites.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like the Friends phenomenon. Just keeps paying back new generations and people and comfort. That comfort. So what we were trying to do is try not to neglect that as well and talk about that, because that is actually the real experience.
When you talk about these other streaming platforms, obviously have lots of ads and bits and pieces as well. That's big competition, right? So for you, the creative that you do for the campaigns that you're doing to promote, UKTV, they've got to be great. They've got to land. They've got to be fantastic. How do you balance that with like wanting to do great creative versus like what the business needs, but also in such a competitive landscape?
I think shows fall into 3 buckets. You've got new stuff where you've kind of got to tell people what it's about. Bergerac coming back. Now, Bergerac is obviously a reboot. So you had an audience that were already aware. So that gave you a bit more license just to do something that's about the tonal and do something about the character. So you have to kind of look at everything and go, what's the job to be done? But that's your new. There's got to be an element of unpacking. And then you got your returners where you go in assumption that people know it. Or we've also got this thing where it shows that you've got that probably people might not have seen first time around, which is a big thing as well. So we always go, is there a second opportunity with this? And then you've got your archive, and then you've got your Parks and Rec and your American Office. And what we try and do with that is that's where we try and have the fun. And the best example of that is the work that we do on Gold, because you've got all of these iconic comedies with these iconic scenes, but it's not enough just to show Del falling through the bar, because everybody knows that. What we did for I think it was the channel was 30 years old, we shot a load of those scenes, reshot them with kids. And it was great. And, we shot the 40 Towers where he's beating and we got the actual car back. If you're going to do it right. We parked it in exactly the same place.
No way.
And the line was, there's some jokes that never get old. I think you can have fun with it. And I think that's what people remember and they go back to, and they go, these guys really get it. They understand why we love this. We understand why this is a cultural thing. So that's what I think, that's how we look at everything. And there's a different opportunity with those. The bigger stuff, with all of it really, it's now about performance as well. It's now about how do you get this out in quick bite-sized ways and target people, or where that audience is, what are they going to respond to. It's trying to be analytical and targeted as much as possible, but at the same time do something that just shows that just has personality and you really get it, and try and tap into fandom and what people like about the show and surprise them with that. I think that's what we always try and do.
What's next? Because you've obviously led this really exciting period of Rebrand, been doing some really incredible big campaign work for you. What does the future hold?
It's just more growth, really. The growth of streaming is massive. We recently turned up on Channel 4's platform, which is a new thing, started at the beginning of January. And then it becomes more investment in new shows, bringing back new formats. They are the really exciting things. We've got really good at building up great relationships with production companies and talent, which allows us to do really great bespoke assets across all platforms. So we'll get a day and we'll do lots of different, longer, shorter formats. And then it's all the usual stuff that everyone else is facing, which is the future and AI.
Yeah, we haven't even. That's true. Actually, haven't even touched on that at all.
Yeah, look, I was working with it this week, and I was working on something, and it was quite interesting because it started to tell me what the voice of our brand was.
And how did it?
And it wasn't far off. It was kind of like a slightly sort of blander version of it. And we were sort of like chatting and brainstorming together. We're just currently using it for ideation.
A sounding board, you mean, almost?
Well, more of a proof of concept.
Okay.
So traditionally you would go, right, I'm going to lay down my edit and I'm going to put my voice on it. But now if you can just get 11 lads and put it on there, you're already halfway to something that's better, and it becomes easier to sell it. But the thing is, it still already sounds very generic very quickly. And I think there's not a lot of, if you use Runway, use Free Pick, it's almost like it's just like there. And sometimes you get something that looks amazing. And then you go, can you change this and change that? And then they just remove a character. And you're like, no, I didn't ask you to do that. Or they just do something completely crazy. I kind of think, the analogy for me is when you were, many, many years ago, you wanted to get into photography, you were talking film, you're talking processing, you're talking lenses, you're talking all of those things to get to make a really good photo. Whereas now there's loads of technology, it makes it much easier. You still need to have the talent, you still need to have the idea, but the route to get to execution is much easier. Yeah. Because the biggest thing is, I've got this idea on paper.
Yeah.
Can you give me a sum of money to go and do this? And they're like,
but now you can, if you've got a proof
of
concept.
She doesn't turn up. Yeah. And you're like, well, I don't know. But so the more and more you can reassure people and go, well, it looks kind of like this, or it looks kind of like this. But what you can't just do is, if you're just doing it to save money, I think you're just going to end up with loads of bland work. And if you need loads of pack shots of a thing, then that's fine, yeah. But if you're trying to make an ad or make something that conveys an emotion, or have an emotion reaction to, or you remember, or a bit of copy where you go, yeah, that's quite nice, stuff like that, then I still think the taste and the human touch is still required. I think, we will eventually go back to full circle where people will appreciate real, handmade, genuine. I think authenticity is still massive, and I think you lose a lot of that with AI. If you can just create these clips, then you're losing that thing, that human endeavor to do that thing.
Well, listen, here's hopefully to a continued like long time where we can be involved in fun, creative stuff, and you know, pushing what we can do ourselves as well, whilst I'm sure using a bit of AI here and there to help us along the way.
100%, 100%. But you know, is AI ever going to go? When we get Cher, you know, it.
Thank you so much for coming.
No worries,
on.
my
It's been
pleasure.
so much fun chatting to you.
Thank you, Tom.
Cheers.